Hey everyone, today I'm talking with the creators of the Auroch League, AA and Joneseh. AA is a self-proclaimed lore master of Asheron's Call, and he actually sent me this page from the wiki, which is the first Chalice of Dareth lore, awarded to AA for first place in the Challenge of Dareth lore, and it's got his screenshot, so I feel like that's a really good introduction of who and Adventure is as an Asheron's Call player. Used to play on Leaf Goal and just knows everything you could possibly imagine about Dareth, probably more than the people who designed Asheron's Call. And Jonesy has been playing on Levistras since 2019 when the server was first introduced, pretty early in the days of the emulator when there wasn't that much to do, and also really likes to make spreadsheets, which I think is how we got this really nice spreadsheet of rules for the Levistras Explorers League. If you don't know what the Auroch League is, if you haven't watched my video on that, well, you're too late because the day this video comes out is going to be the last day of the league, but don't click away too long. Didn't watch is that the Auroch League was effectively the first seasonal content for Asheron's Call ever, and on the Levistras server, you had to create a new character with pretty weakened template, and you couldn't accept outside help, and the goal was to kind of explore the world, get titles, and you would get points. Let's get into the Auroch League. So this is the first, seasonal content for Asheron's Call, I think, ever. I don't think anyone's ever tried this before. Can you guys talk about what inspired this idea?
I can kind of take the wheels. So the Auroch League kind of came about because in 2019 I had worked on an idea for a Iron Man type of challenge, and I think that originally came from like RuneScape, maybe. I've never actually played RuneScape, but I think that's where it kind of originates from. And it's kind of like a sort of hardcore challenge with certain restrictions. At least that's how I interpreted it. So I had worked on that with the current admin and of Levistras, and I was like, hey, let's make some like really jank characters since AC is like just a big sandbox and you can kind of do that. It didn't really go very well. it wasn't really put together well. It was kind of just like, hey, this is going to be it's kind of a dumb idea because at that point, 2019, there wasn't sets, there wasn't legendaries, there wasn't legendary quests. Like there was a lot of stuff missing from the emulator. So I was kind of like, there's not really a ton to do. I think at those days we were mostly like killing rippers and skeletons every day, just because that was the end game.
Yeah.
If you can imagine doing that every day, you're like, why would I log in anymore? So I kind of made a spreadsheet because that's what I do. And that was what the original idea came from. So I started messing around with that. This new idea, and I want to say this was maybe like late summer. And I had played a lot of Path of Exile. I know you've played a lot of Diablo, Phoenix.
Yep.
And that was one of the reasons why I asked you. I was like, man, this is like perfect, right up his alley. But I was like, maybe like a sort of league season thing. I'm like, I didn't really know how that would work in AC because so much of the progression is tied up with like luminance and augmentation gems, and there's a lot of like weird timers. A lot of stuff has been reduced, and kind of just messed around with it. And very quickly, I decided to reach out to an adventurer and see if he would kind of join me on this chaotic journey. That's the idea basically came from, hey, I've played other games. Let's see if can we ACify this kind of concept and see if it works out.
Yeah, it's a really cool concept, and I think other games like MMOs, even WoW, I think is doing some kind of seasonal content now. So
Mm-hmm.
it's definitely something that's catching on, which I never really thought it would in an MMO, because the whole point of
Yeah.
playing an MMO usually is like advancing the same character, forever, I guess. But it makes sense trying something different. So, any significance to the name, the Auroch League, or did you just want something that started with the letter A as the first league?
I'll
Yeah,
let
I can
jump
cover
in.
this one. So Jones reached out to me and was talking about updating the Iron Man challenge, and it it eventually got to making these classes, and we just kind of treated them like D&D classes. We literally, in one iteration of the spreadsheet, had cleric, paladin, warlock, and when we were at that point, we wanted to name it something like Dungeons and Dragons. So we had names like Grottos and Gromnies or whatever
Mm-hmm.
else. And I think we had one for Auroch. I don't remember what it was, but we decided to stick with Auroch for the first league because the letter A.
That's awesome. I
Yeah.
love it.
Yeah, and we thought too, being in our mega mind, we're like, hey, if this is a thing that happens in the future, you don't want to start with like that something like, Tomb Rock League, and you're like, oh man, I only got like 10, 15 to go. If this, depending on how it goes, we're like, well, Auroch sounds cool. I think someone else had done some like Dungeons and Dredges or something. That seems like a simple one.
Yep.
But Auroch is such a weird kind of thing. It's not like a normal monster you think of if you're someone that plays AC, but it also kind of like sticks out a little bit. And then I think with that, it enabled us to try to do some kind of cool and goofy things with the rewards, which I think we'll talk about in a little bit.
Yeah. So launch night, first night doing a seasonal thing, there had to have been like 40 or 50 people in the training hall, more people than I've ever seen in one place actually at the keyboard, probably in a really long time playing Asheron's Call. And it was just like, it was super fun. I was in a fellowship with 9 people just going through the starter quests, like trying to get our characters as high as we could, as fast as we could. Were you guys happy overall with the amount of people that showed up for the league in general over the course of the league too?
Yeah, I was really happy with how many people turned out in that first night. I think we were expecting maybe 10 people might show up and we would count that as a success. And yeah, it was like 40 or 50 people in the training hall all waiting for the NPC to get spawned. It was pretty cool.
It was,
Yeah,
it
that
was
was-
kind of insane. There could have been a portal storm in that
Yeah.
training hall.
Yeah, that is it was wild, and I kind of want AA to, and maybe both of you because y'all were actually there. I was kind of doing a lot more stuff behind the scenes pretty much for the entire league, and even that first night. So while I was around, I wasn't able to actually participate in a lot of it, but it was really cool to see that many people in the training hall, that many people signed up. It was electrifying, I guess you could say. And like AA said, we were expecting like 10 people would be amazing. We're like maybe 4 or 5 people, we're like, yeah, they'll show up, and a couple people, and it's like, this is crazy. I've never seen this many people in AC for like years and years since I was a kid, basically.
Yeah, and I have the scoreboard up, and the scoreboard goes down probably maybe 100 people. Do you guys know how many characters were made in the league overall?
Yeah, we have access to some of the behind the scenes data, and well, we don't have access to it, but Spigot has given it to us. And there's about 250 characters that were flagged for the Auroch League.
Wow.
And now some of those are going to be alts or mules, but I don't think everyone even had many slots to use. So
Yeah, no, personally, I have been keeping one character slot open to mess around with. Like I made some of my like worst character videos, so that slot was reserved for that, and that became my Auroch League character, but I definitely didn't have slots to like make mules or anything, so I played the entire league without any kind of alternate character or anything. So I'm sure there are other people like that as well.
Yeah, that's definitely something that in the future we're gonna have to look into, because I know that as someone that participated and played the league, not having a mule in AC very quickly becomes a problem as you're progressing. It's a kind of uniquely AC problem because so much of your progression is tied behind gear and loot and salvage and other things, where it's like, it's possible to do a lot of those things without it, but it's so much easier to do it with it.
Yeah. Speaking of the scoreboard that I have up, you guys chose some bonus points, all these kind of crazy quests. Did you think that the players would be able to beat these, or were these kind of aspirational quests, I guess?
some of them I thought would be maybe not completed for sure, but for the most part, I picked ones that I thought would be possible. You may remember sometime in, I don't know, September, that I had asked in the Discord about group quests and quests that take you all over the place. And there were some good ideas there, but unfortunately, some of those quests didn't have titles, so I couldn't put them on this. And there was definitely some late game quests that probably should have been on this, but I never thought people would be doing like the level 200 plus content.
Yeah, I
and I
know
think
for
that
me, I was able to do, at least when we're recording this, I've done every bonus point quest except for Auroch, which is one of the Clutch of Kings, and that one's just been really tough to beat. So
yeah, the list kind of I think our expectation of how much progress people would make was kind of definitely this is eye opening because even I mean I've played in game, done tons of in game stuff, with you, Phoenix, and other people,
yep.
and it was very much like, hey, we want to give people like reasonable goals, but also like Clutch of Kings, which that's you really need a group for, or Harbinger, like you need a group for Gerlin. It's a lot easier to do with the group, and there's like some of the level restricted content. The bonus points list kind of was started out pretty big, and then we kind of whittled it down because we're like, no one's going to be able to do this, and then very quickly learned people like, oh yeah, this guy's level 150 within the first week. We're like, oh. well, well, I guess they're gonna go title hunting and stuff because I mean, even now, our ideas for like, what an average player would do, what like a high achiever would do, and whatnot. Like, there's obviously some people that have, yourself included, have gone like the distance to really try to get as many points as possible, which is awesome to see.
Yeah, it's been a fun challenge to try to do some of these quests with the definitely not ideal character, but some people are doing full John legendary quest loops, and I mean it's just pretty impressive what people have pulled together.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the builds that you guys came up with. You were talking about how you were going to name them Cleric and Warlock, and was there one of these builds that you did come up with that you thought would be better than the others, or now that you've seen what myself and other players are able to do with some of these builds, would you maybe change them in retrospect?
I'll let AA take the wheel on this before I answer.
Sure. Well, I thought that Vagabond would be a bit more popular. It is the class that I picked. I really like lockpick and just sneaking around and looting stuff. So, and it also doesn't have a lot of junky skills. It has spec, run, and jump, which is not great, but it actually doesn't really hurt your character. And like, you're never going to hit the spec skill cap with these characters, so it doesn't really hurt. I also thought that the Hunter would be a bit more popular because the only junk skill that it really has is cooking, which also isn't that much of a junk skill with these characters because it does let you heal. And I was surprised by how many spirit summoners people made because it does not have an actual combat skill. It just has summoning, and summoning kind of sucks at low levels. That's part of why I made that custom summon for the Tukola quest. Is because other than that, you just have like a mud golem until you're level 50.
Mm-hmm.
And I also think that Shadowbound, I think we messed up on that one since it's we wanted to like really gimp it because it's void magic and void magic is a little overpowered. But by not having mana conversion, I think just people were scared from picking it.
Yeah, I think I was surprised a little bit too because I would say 90% of the people in the league played some type of melee class. It seemed like to me there were a lot of samurais. There were a lot of Chevard was very popular. I thought at least the people that I have played with predominantly. There weren't very many like warsmiths or only a few Shadowbound. I think I would guess that Hunter was probably the most popular second class that people took, just because of how good item magic is. And I know I took that super early on my build. And like you said, cooking was a super useful skill as well. I played a character all the way. I think my character's like 267 right now, and without healing or life magic. So that cooking was super valuable.
Yeah, that's crazy. I think when we were balancing well, I say balancing. Someone's gonna hold me to the flames later in Discord. Quote unquote balancing the classes. We kind of knew that the classes weren't going to be balanced. One of the big things that we worked out is that there's pretty much exactly. I think we used every skill in the game and set it up for different classes,
Yeah,
unless
we
I'm
did.
wrong. Yeah. And that was really the main goal. And when I was messing with Iron Man, that was kind of what I wanted to do. I was like, hey, is there a way to kind of sort these into groups or, into like, hey, these are what I would call OP skills, like life magic and item magic, creature magic, even mana conversions kind of up there. And then, like okay skills and then like kind of like whatever skills. And then we kind of worked from there and just spent several hours moving things around just trying to figure out what would work best. But yeah, I do agree with AA. The Shadowbound got shafted. I mean, there's no way around it. It did. You basically were screwed with Void Magic without mana conversion. That's something that we would definitely change in the future. I don't know if we would ever necessarily do these classes again. Probably not. Some sort of different variation. But, let's never say never. Spirit Summoner was a little bit shocking, but summoning is completely broken in AC.
Yeah, and I think the thing
That's-
with summoning is there's no other skill like it, right?
yeah.
There's nothing else that tanks, that does
hmm
damage. It's just very
Yeah.
unique.
Insane damage. And I think I've said this before. If I was ever to run a league, summoning would just be banned. So you can print my word or audio, whatever you want. Summoning will not exist in the future because unless everyone has it, because it's just kind of ridiculous of how.
I have some plans for that. So yeah, it's
Oh God.
for having it not
Evil.
be useful.
Yeah. Okay. Evil mastermind at play. I like it.
Yeah.
Hear that? Get your Nerf armor out because the band's coming.
Yeah, that's AA's favorite thing is
Yeah,
the band
exactly.
hammer.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think you guys did a great job with the classes. Like, it's definitely not an easy thing, and there was definitely a lot of diversity in what people were playing. So, I think that's cool to see. Levistras and this league, like, obviously, kind of took over the server. So, how much support did you have from the server admin to run this? And I think you guys were kind of the lead on this. So, did you have a lot of support in that regard?
Yeah, we did. I've known Spigot since he started playing on the server before he was the admin. I know he loves me name dropping him like this. And he was my vassal whenever he first started playing. It's my claim to fame. It's that 100% of my vassals have become the admin. That's what I tell everybody.
100% of the server admins have been your vassal.
Exactly. That's what it is. But yeah, so I told him like, hey, I'm working on a spreadsheet, and he's just like blew me off because he's like, yeah, welcome to my life. Every time you talk to me, you have some sort of crazy spreadsheet about something. And now it's funny because now when I talk to him, he'll start talking to me about something like, hey, I need you to make a spreadsheet for this. And I was like, man, I was getting so much crap for this for so long. And now it's like, now you need me. Now you need
Your
me.
skills have become useful.
Yes, exactly. But I told him this time is a little bit different. I was like, hey, I don't want you to actually look at it until I actually have a plan together. And everything that I've done for Levistras, either behind the scenes or in public, I'm like, hey, I'm going to get the okay from the boss in my head. And so I'm like, hey, I'm about to, set this thing on fire. Is that cool? And he's like, no, please don't. I'm like, all right, well, it's too late. I already sent the message. But yeah, I think I got a lot more credibility when I told him, hey, I recruited AA to come work with me on this. And I think that really piqued his interest because he's like, oh, AA is reliable and trustworthy and not Jonesy. So that's fine. Maybe something will actually get done. But yeah, Spigot's been awesome. He's helped us a ton. I know AA can talk a little bit more about this, but he's always been awesome and really easy to work with. And I think whenever people want to do stuff that is a positive contribution to the server, he's always all for it. And he'll really try to bend over backwards to do whatever he can to help you, as long as it's not something like, hey, we're going to give out rare armor to everyone. As long as it's not something ridiculous, he really wants to help the server and the community just be a better place.
Yeah, I mean, that's always been my experience as well. So I think it's one of the best, if not the best server to play on if you're not interested in botting.
Yeah, I was really blown away by how much help we got from him, how supportive he was. Not because he isn't supportive, but because we had like this crappy little plan to just manually score everything ourselves on a spreadsheet. We had that old thread to like submit your scores, and we were just going to keep track of that. And all we wanted to do was get him to implement the rewards so that we could hand those out. But we got a ton of help. He built the whole scoreboard thing for us. All I had to do was put in an NPC that adds a flag, and also both of us got to do custom content. So I got to finally put out some of that facility hub stuff that I have been working on for like 3 years.
Yeah, I haven't covered that on the channel yet, but AA redid the first, 6 quests in the facility hub to make the rewards a
Yep.
lot better. Better items that kind of are actually useful to start out with.
Yeah, and that was even like a last minute thing. That was not going to be part of the league, but we had about a week left before it launched, and I was like, "Hey, I have like 4 of these quests pretty much done, and I can whip out the other 2 pretty quickly." So he was like, "Sure, if you can get it done and make sure it doesn't break the server, go for it."
I think that was a huge help with the start because a lot of your updates were to make it so monsters dropped like 9 of an item instead of 1. And with the number of people that showed up to the start, if we had to wait like 5 minutes for a respawn for everybody to get, say, like the Frost Tachi, like that would have been a huge pain point for the beginning of the league.
And there were a few that I definitely missed. There's the undead curator in Collier is still on like a 10-minute respawn or something stupid like that. But for the most part, I got them all covered, which was really helpful.
I think the other thing with that, just to touch on it briefly, is that a lot of those new starting items you made not only are more useful, kind of more balanced, but there's so many more options, especially with these kind of weird, janky builds that we were dealing with. You know, the Ice Tachi turned into 4 different melee weapons. So instead of, I think, what was it before? Finesse?
It was heavy.
It was heavy? Okay. Yeah, but instead of just, hey, heavy gets an Ice Tachi and no one else gets anything, it's everyone has a chance to get, a self-buffing decent weapon at level 10. And I don't remember what the quest is, but the quest with the fiery baton and the robe, that thing is awesome.
Yeah, the Halls of the Helm.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's such a huge upgrade compared to, what it was.
I didn't even know how good it was going to be because apparently War Magic Mastery doesn't come on anything that's not a wand. So by adding War Magic 4 to those gauntlets, like it helped me so I could actually have a war buff on my mage that doesn't have creature.
Yeah, it's one of those things with how the league was set up that I think one thing we didn't touch on with the builds was that kind of the other kind of secondary concept, other than you have some skills you don't, is that it was going to force people to actually kind of play old school, where it's like, hey, does anyone have life magic? Please, can you buff me before we go in here so we don't die? Someone have creature magic or item here. Let me hit you with blood drinker and whatever, so that way you can actually survive. It's like that doesn't really happen in AC anymore.
Yeah.
Everybody's just like a self-contained kind of beast mode all the time.
I have mixed feelings about that because my character, I never got life magic, so I was relying on like capturing the keep to get my level 8 buffs or level 7 buffs from like the Rosu Morta chapter house. And it just like made buffing for me was just like an ordeal. But it was really cool when you're doing a group quest and someone's like we were doing one of the Clutch of Kings and we're like at the dungeon, someone's like, hey, can someone throw life buffs on me? And then someone would buff the other player, or like someone's like, hey, I need creature buffs. Like it was really cool to see how people combine their builds to work together. And I think that's really what you guys were going for with a lot of this.
That's why the classes are set up the way they are mostly, so that people would kind of be forced to work together. And I think people outsmarted us a lot of the time, and they figured out ways around that and just still soloed everything. But it was really nice to see on those big group. I was bugging for buffs because I only have item.
Yeah, you just made your normal character. Come on.
No, that's true. That's true.
I think one last thing is that I think there's a lot of, because of how the mentality with AC is, I think there's so many people that got stuck on, I have to have melee D to like do anything in this game. Like you just have to. And you really don't. Like there's so many misconceptions about how the game can be played, but it's kind of crazy. The builds were not, they were trying to be balanced around certain things. They definitely weren't balanced at all, but it was really cool to see people kind of overcome obstacles, especially like everyone doing group quests, which is like really awesome.
I think it was really fun to do a lot of those quests. And the first couple group quests that we did, I have a video of it on my channel doing the rush aspect of Grail, and we had probably 20-25 people running the quest together. It was just a really cool experience.
Yeah, I was with you there. It was we had to kill him twice to get enough rewards.
Yep.
Which, when does that happen on like a level sub 100 quest ever?
A quest that most people probably have never run before,
Yeah,
honestly.
I had never even run it.
That might have been the most people to ever run that quest period, like even in
In
retail.
retail.
No, I think in retail, like on Leaf Call, they were like begging to get players to go do it so that they could finish it.
Probably because most people had leveled past that. That's one of the few quests that's like actually locked between like a top end level restriction. So as the league kind of progressed, since this was on an existing server, Levistras, everyone had characters already. I had a bunch of max level characters. There was a little bit of backlash to the league where people who weren't participating in it felt like they were a little bit left out, because the league, we kind of had a rule of not doing quests with each other, so that I couldn't bring my level 275 character to help someone else and like advance their league character. Is there anything that you would maybe change about the league to kind of quell some of that disconnect between people who weren't doing the league and people who are?
Yeah, I think we're definitely going to change some of that in future leagues. And there's certainly going to be leagues where that kind of stuff doesn't really matter either. So, we might do a shorter league that only lasts a week and it's just, hey, don't interfere with these players, but it's done. And then everyone's back to their mains.
Yeah, I think overall, I would say is a success. I kind of knew, I don't know if I'd say we, but I kind of knew that there was potential for that to happen. But honestly, I was actually shocked of how many people were actually playing the league. So it was kind of a weird, bittersweet thing where I was really excited that there was a lot of people playing the league. But the last thing we want to do when we're trying to kind of bring the community together is to make other people in the community feel left out because they, FOMO, or they don't want to deal with it or whatever. But did try to tell them like, hey, this is only going to last for a certain amount of time. I think most of the people, yourself included, Phoenix, and even me, if someone's like, hey, I need help with X, Y, or Z quest, can someone help me? I'm like, I had no problem jumping on my main and going and helping them. It's like, that's not the point of the league is. The point of the league is to do something, and there's not really any other way to do it for the Auroch League. But we've talked about things, and I think in the future we will try to keep that to a minimum.
Yeah, I think that we could definitely get some better, more flexible rules in place. Like for example, you can't group with anyone in the league if you're under 50, but then if you're over 50, you can group with them as long as the outside player is a lower level, something like that.
Yeah.
When we first wrote that whole rule document, it was already really long and complicated, and we just thought it'd be easier to say just no outside help, no exceptions, just league players play with league players, non-league players play with non-league players.
Yeah, and I kind of agree. I mean, that's like the point of doing seasonal content, right? Is like starting from scratch and everyone's on the same playing field. So you want to avoid any like even perception of like, oh, I'm getting outside help. So I see why you kind of did that rule.
Yeah, and we also thought that this could potentially even attract new players. I don't know how many new players did end up joining for the league, but we didn't want people to think, well, what's the point of playing if everyone could just use their 275 characters to help them out? Or in my case, your 250 or whatever I am.
Your level 126 characters to help out.
You got to be getting close to 275. I've been doing my best. I mean,
I have two characters that are like both 252, 255, somewhere in there. It would help if I ever played them, but I have been exclusively playing my league character for the past 3 months.
so let's talk about the rewards for the league. You guys came up with some pretty cool, unique items. There's like a Explorer's Compass, Explorer's Cloak. There's an Auroch Bull caster, a summoning horn for, I think, a pet. a housing item, maybe a special title, and my favorite of all is this backpack that's a 30 slot backpack, which everybody needs more of. How did you guys come up with these rewards?
I'm gonna let AA take over because I helped, but he was kind of the mastermind. Other than us kind of brainstorming, I have barely touched actual like content creation in AC up until this point. So it was more like, hey, this would be cool. And then, usually I'd go message him and Spigot and I'm like, hey, can we do this? And he's like, no. And I'm like, okay, cool. Back to the drawing board. It's like, no, we're not going to do that. And I'm like, all right, AA, time for you to figure out all this stuff and I'll just give you the thumbs up.
Yeah, we definitely had some ideas that didn't work out, either because Spigot said, no, you can't do that. That's too overpowered. Or just because it like technically wasn't possible. As an example, the housing item was supposed to be like a flag that casts cloaked in skill, and that is, I forget which one it is. It's either a self buff or an other buff, but it's the kind of buff where it can't target you, the player. It's targeting itself. So you could use the item, and then I suppose the buff was cast on the flag, but you couldn't see it. Nothing happened.
It's so weird, the coding in AC sometimes.
Yeah. So the actual item gives you a refreshing hot towel that you use, and it's a consumable that then casts that. So that's how we were able to get around that. For the rewards in general, like the consumable items, we were trying to get those to be useful to anyone, not all of them useful to everyone, but if new players were joining, the experience gems are going to be helpful. Not necessarily for a main character, but for leveling up a few alts, because I forget what it totals to, but a few 100 million experience is not so bad. The promissory notes are always helpful because alt currency is useful for a million things.
Yep.
The casino keys, you can get alt currency. I think you can get rares out of them too.
Foolproof.
Is that right?
Salvage.
Foolproof. Yeah.
Foolproof salvage, yeah.
I don't play this game. I don't know what's going on. Yeah, and then the Aether Flux is custom content. It's just for tailoring items, but for people that want that stuff. This league took the place of live events for the last 3 months, basically. So it seems like a good reward to give out. Mm-hmm. And then all the custom rewards were likewise kind of. We wanted to at least have something that everyone would be interested in, even if they're not interested in every single one. So the first tier is helpful for leveling alts or if you're new, because they have, I think they have the level 3 increased experience buff on them.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And some arcane lore buffs, which are really helpful. Yeah. And then a little summon and a casting device that can be tailored.
And it casts cow. Like, who even knew that cow was a spell in Asheron's Call?
Looking through all the spells to find to put on these things, there's a lot of weird stuff out there.
And I'll tell you one thing as a sneak peek for everyone. I don't know when this video is coming out, but casting cow is amazing. It's one of the most fun things I've done in AC.
I'm very excited.
It
for
is.
That.
Oh, I fully intend people to be PvPing or PKLing each other and just killing each other.
Throwing cows back and forth.
Oh, it's so good. It's so good.
Yeah, I would not tailor this thing. It's fun. It's like the egg shooter, but actually useful.
Cool.
Yeah. And I think AA may have let the cat out of the bag because I don't think Phoenix actually knew what the golden Auroch head did.
I didn't. No, I don't think anybody did.
No.
But this isn't going to come out till the end of the league, so it's not
right.
Not going to be a spoiler for anybody else.
Yeah, exactly. But I know that was something that I had kind of thought about, and I was like, I have no idea if this will work because we were really trying to come up with something cool that would be useful. But every time I'd ask Spigot, he's like, "That's broken. You're stupid. Why are you asking me these questions?" And because I was like, man, it'd be really cool if there's some kind of housing item that gave you like a short buff or like something cool. Because I actually really like, the housing stuff. And like, I know you can only have a certain amount of things, but I know the Halloween event for Arena that gives you brilliance. I thought that was really cool for that mansion one.
Yeah, I have that one on my mansion, and I think the coolest part of it is that it like emotes back at you and like does
Yeah.
the like arms akimbo or whatever it's called.
Yeah, exactly. So I wanted to do something that was sort of in the similar vein because I thought that was really cool, and we eventually ended up with this as a hey, it can give you cloaked in skill. Maybe you need a brill or you're trying to equip some 450 lore piece and you really need that last boost. So you can go to your mansion and do that and get your last 20 points, or that's kind of the idea. Or you're tinking and you just need that little bit of boost. That was kind of the idea for that.
It's an awesome
Yeah.
idea, and it's like it's super unique. I think is why. Same with all these other unique rewards that you guys came up with. That's why it's cool and like worth all the effort that everyone put into it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Yeah,
very
and
excited to have multiple 30 slot backpacks on Phoenix. Like I need all the pack space I can get.
that one seemed like a no-brainer to do because it's basically the same reward for the Dareth exploration marker quest,
Yep.
and it's another once per character item that you can get, and yeah. And for the housing buff thing, it's the item it gives you is on like a I don't know a 10-second decay or 30-second decay, something like that, and you can only get one per day, I believe. So you can't just have a pack full of them and just pop them in a dungeon when you need more skill.
Oh, okay, that's good. Yeah, there's no
Yeah.
like there's no real abusing that then.
No, it's
Yeah.
basically people were already doing this by like standing in a fire to take damage to have their cloak buff go off or whatever. So it's just kind of streamlining that into something that actually makes some sense rather
Cool.
than breaking the combat system.
Yeah, if you like really need that 20 extra points to land like the 10th tank on a weapon, like you have that option now once a day or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. And not the 20 extra points to land debuffs on Dillos and Gauntlet because I already asked and it won't work.
Which is what we really need it for.
Which is, yeah, exactly. Which is what I tried to convince Spigot that wasn't what it was for, but he saw through my plan immediately.
Well, you know that's what we would have used it for.
Yeah,
Like, we would have
exactly.
figured
I
it
was
out.
like, yes, this is for to help the noobs with lore. And he's like, yeah, sure.
That's funny.
And I think the title just seems like the most appropriate title that there can be.
I don't think we know what the title is, so... Oh, no, it does say there, the title Cowboy. Okay, I didn't know that. So that's a title that existed in... Because they all had to exist previously, right, for you to add them?
Yep. It must have been from a live event. It's in that series of titles that are from the time right before Throne of Destiny when there was some third party running a bunch of live events, and they just threw out titles willy-nilly.
I
And then
didn't even know
Turbine
that
had
they
to
had a
like,
third party doing that. That's cool.
yeah, I forget what they were called. They were like a UK-based thing, and they were going to actually start like a European server, and then that didn't happen.
Well, Cowboy is a great, very appropriate Auroch League title.
Yeah, I think the thing is too is that I know there's a couple of people that really are like pushing to get every single title since there's a leaderboard on the website for Levistras. That so anybody that is missing out, that will be probably a sad day.
Yeah, I don't know who would be doing that. That's crazy.
I know, right? Doesn't make any sense.
Awesome. Do you guys want to talk about do you have any plans for future leagues? Is that something you can talk about today?
Yeah, we can talk a little bit about it. Jones, you want to go first, or you want me to start?
I can go because I don't have a ton. I think you have a little bit more than me. So one of the leagues, obviously this has been a pretty, I would say, roaring success compared to what we thought it was going to be. As far as working on stuff, we have been doing some things. I've been working on some things. Any kind of what I call game dev, but really like AC content dev is all very hush hush because that's the fun part of it is that people don't know and they get to experience it firsthand. As far as a future league idea, to kind of briefly touch on something that I've thought of would be really cool is a sort of like hierarchy league where basically you would go through and you would kill like groups of monsters based off of the chain from the lowest level to the highest level. So, for instance, like female Tuskers, male Tuskers, Crimson Back, all the way up to Bobo or whatever the higher level Tuskers
Snow
are. I guess it
Tuskers.
would be like maybe it'd be like Uber BSD on our server because I think that's probably the highest level Tuskers.
Yep.
that kind of idea, and you would kind of have sets, and you would go through like, hey, maybe you have to do like everything on Monkey Island, and then you'd have to go somewhere else, or you'd be like, you'd start, Tuskers and Ulthoy and Toomrock and all of them all at the base level and kind of work your way through it. I don't know exactly how that would work out, but that's kind of my sort of baseline that intrigued me. And I think going around and slaughtering sounds fun. Like going up and like having to kill every single type of that monster would be really cool. Go for it, A. That's all I got. No more secrets from me.
So one of the things I definitely want to do for a future league is make like a league chapter house. Um, so go find some dungeon that nobody cares about, and there's a few of them, and just put like a shared storage chest for the league, like the one that's in the town network. And I'm thinking maybe put in some of the mansion items, but they're not usable until you complete the quest and then give the item to an NPC and then it unlocks it. Maybe some NPCs that cast buffs, like the Master Enchanter in the Facility Hub, or like the Crystal of Life protections in the chapter houses, and just like a place where all the members of the league can congregate and like actually, see other people online instead of only being on the roleplay channel.
That would be cool. And I mean, access to all those buffs without having to, like, I know some people in this league bought a house and kind of did it that way for other people, but that, like, having an actual place where everyone could congregate would be super cool.
Yeah, and basically this was born out of all the flaws that were brought up during the league, right? Like we didn't think about this. People asked, "Hey, can we use mansion items?" And we're like, I don't know, maybe." Can you? And we decided on no, but we decided that, well, if you got the item and you own the house, then you can.
Yeah.
But it would just be easier for everyone if there was just a place to do it and there was a way to unlock it, so they weren't just all there to start, but you could earn it. And it'd be like one of those, like the quest to build Asheron's golem at his castle, or the Gold Gear Primus, where you're all working together as a group to build something better.
Be like Justice League or the Evil League of Evil, depending on how you look at it.
And then something else that I would like to do, regardless of the league, or even if there aren't any more leagues, is finish the Facility Hub quest updates. I have most of them planned out, but very little actual work done on the rest of the quests. In general, I want to make it so that every melee weapon skill gets a weapon of every damage type instead of this kind of scattering of some types, and have those weapons actually be useful and actually have more quest summons and quest items for void magic, because those two skills are basically forgotten about. Like they threw them in and there's just no content for them.
Yep.
I was going to say one thing that we didn't have written down or anything is that one thing that I've been thinking about since the league started and everything is that I haven't really done much AC content creation. I'm like barely dipping my toes into it. It's definitely not what I would say easy, but it's definitely not overly super complicated that no one can touch it. I'm kind of the mindset that if I can do things, then most people can do things. But I would want to say that anybody that's enjoyed the league, or anybody that enjoys, Levistras or just AC in general, if you have ideas for future content, I mean, we are going to have a feedback channel, but if you have ideas for future content, or if you want to come up with something, I mean, this isn't like, AA and I run leagues forever. Like if someone else wanted to, come up with something and run something, whether it's player ran or, a 2-week event or whatever, like please do that. Don't feel like you can't do that because there's other stuff going on, because that's what the whole kind of community is about. This didn't come about like, hey, we're just, this is just a random idea I had and we kind of ran with it and it seemingly worked out. So please reach out, and Discord's usually the easiest place to do that.
Awesome. Yeah, and I think kind of a testament to like the good job that you guys did is people are already starting to think about like what they would want to do for a second league. And I saw a lot of people in Discord even this week like coming up with ideas and brainstorming what they thought would be cool. So I think you've kind of sparked a fire in a lot of people who really enjoyed this and are thinking about what something else could be for another league.
Yeah, I have one other fun idea. We have a lot of ideas. We have a whole secret document where we're writing a bunch of stuff down.
A secret
But
document.
yeah,
Secret doc, top
secret.
secret.
Yep. But one of the ideas that's really been stuck in my head is doing a league where you're trapped on an island or a chain of islands. So there's, I don't know, 4 different island chains that you could use, and they all have their own little interesting quirks about them. So like, unless you're on the Halatian Islands, you can't get Augs. And even if you are there, you can only get the ones where the trainers actually exist on those islands. Regardless of what island you're on, there's no summon mastery statues, so you couldn't use any of the loot summons.
Ooh, spicy.
Yeah.
That's your summoning solution, I see.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there you go.
Hey, you can train it, but you can't use it. You can use your mud golem that you start with. Yeah. And it'd also just be fun to use that as an opportunity to like spruce up those islands. Like the Tusker Island has a lot of dungeons that are just there and are useless because they have no quest, they have no tusk, and they just have those the humans that just debuff you, and it's like, why would you go there, right?
Yep.
And the Visayan Islands are like sort of wacky and all over the place. They sort of roughly break down into like progressing difficulty, but there's no real structure to the content. So it'd be a fun thing to like not completely overhaul them, but make them make a little bit more sense and add a bit more content to them.
I like how A's brain works compared to mine. He's like, hey, no one can get to Arwick because they're stuck on this island. And I'm like, let's just blow up Arwick.
That's an option too.
That we'll leave that to option B. Just blow up Arwick. Then you don't have to worry about anything.
Yeah, or just make it so like you have to be in level 300 to use the statues or something. Just something
270
so it's like totally broken.
276.
Yeah. Awesome. I really appreciate you guys joining me to talk about the league. I personally really enjoyed the league, and I look forward to what you guys have planned in the future. Is there anything you want to say before we call it?
I would say thank you, Phoenix. You made a awesome video that was really, really important. I'm really glad I was able to, pull your arm and really convince you to do it. I think I asked you, I said, hey, can you do this? And you're like, yeah, sure. It's like really took a lot of effort to get you to, hey, this thing that you might be really interested in is right down your alley. Can you do this? You're like, yes.
You knew what I like.
Yeah, exactly. I was using it against you. But I do appreciate not only you doing this video, but being an awesome person, making really good, if not the best, probably I'll just go ahead and say the best AC content out there on YouTube, which I enjoy your videos. I'm like, hey, this is a quest. I didn't even know this is a thing that existed. But yeah, I really appreciate you taking the time to do this. I'm really glad that you enjoyed the league. Just give you a little shout out since you're third in the leaderboard. So apparently you did really enjoy the league. Other than that, thank you for everybody that played in the Auroch League. That was just kind of a blast to do. Something that was unique, I guess. I think, and it was a good time.
No, I agree with all of that. Yeah, I think the video that you did was really helpful. Like I said, we had like 250 individual characters that are signed up, and there's approximately 50 characters right now that got a qualifying score. So we had at least 50 dedicated players. I think there might have only been like one that was an alt of somebody else. So like that's really impressive. And I do not think it would have been as successful if you hadn't made that video explaining what the hell was going on with that crazy spreadsheet.
Agreed.
I mean, we did our best, but it was a big mess.
Yeah.
And also, I'd like to thank all the players that participated and led quests, and even the players that didn't lead quests, the players that were just doing their own thing and just seeing how far they could take these wacky characters. I know we had at least one character in Lighten. Did we have more than one?
Mm-hmm.
I think
that's
only
crazy.
that I know of. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. If we had even dreamed that was a possibility, we would have had that be like a 200 bonus point title. But I thought maybe they'll get to 250. That seems reasonable. That's how far I got in 3 years playing here.
25 years playing.
That's also true.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, I'm glad I could do my part. I don't really I think making the videos is a lot easier than coming up with the idea and putting that spreadsheet together. So I'm not going to take too much credit for this being a success.
I'm gonna give you 25% credit.
Well, I'll give you,
Just
yeah, we'll
offer.
give you 25%. I think that's fair.
That's a lot. I'll take it, I guess. Well, thanks a lot for joining me, guys. I really appreciate it. And thanks for watching.